So, Tracey, obviously, it's very, very unsatisfactory, the manoeuvring around, the getting it through, trying to guillotine it. As soon as the election was over, it was suddenly back on the agenda. It was pulled before the election, and then the whip system came in, and there was a very tight yes vote by only a margin of 7. So let's have a look at those that voted for this pact.
Sure. So as you said, there were 79 votes in favour and 72 votes against. So there was a margin, as you said, of 7. 151 TDs showed up to vote and 9 TDs weren't present. So in terms of the yes votes, what happened was every Green Party TD showed up and voted yes. Every Fianna Fáil TD bar 2 showed up and voted yes. And every Fine Gael TD bar 2 showed up and voted yes. So this very much was a government manoeuvred vote, and that's what actually propelled it through. So just in relation to the no votes, so as we said, there were 72 people who voted no. So that was the different parties that voted no. Number 1 was Ain 2. Obviously, Peadar Tóibín is the only TD that we have in Ain 2. We had 18 independent TDs. So my understanding is that every independent TD voted against it.
But can I pause you there? Isn't that very
Sure.
significant that all independent
Yes.
TDs voted no because they were plugged into what the people felt on the ground?
Absolutely.
Whereas the political parties were following the whip system and basically taking their orders from above.
Absolutely. And even if you see a number of the different laws that the government has been passing over the last number of years that have been somewhat controversial, even for some of those laws, a good number of the independent TDs or so-called independent TDs did vote with the government. So I do think it is very significant that no independent TD voted in favour of this pact. Definitely is.
Very significant. I'm going to ask what might be a silly question, but and I probably know the answer to it, but a lot of people might think this. Why wasn't there a free vote given for such an extraordinary decision to be made by the nation?
When you say a free vote, do you mean
no whips?
No whips. Well, because the government had told the EU that they were going to ensure that this pact was passed, and it's as simple as that, it was going to pass. So they were never going to give a free vote to TDs on it, ever.
And there was also some missing people, most unusually missing.
Sure.
The leader of Sinn Féin, absent.
Well, so as I said, Ain 2 voted no, 18 independent TDs voted no. Sinn Féin, they have 37 TDs in the Dáil, 36 attended and voted no. Mary Lou was nowhere to be seen, which I would say for the leader of a party, if you're against such a significant transfer of sovereignty for a party that's meant to be Republican in nature, for the leader of that party not to turn up is significant, I would say. And I think an awful lot of people haven't actually been pointing out the fact that Mary Lou McDonald did not attend that vote, so that is significant. Then in relation to the Social Democrats, I think the Social Democrats have 6 TDs, so 5 showed up and voted no, and the only one who didn't was Jennifer Whitmore. And then in relation to Labour, I believe Labour have 7 TDs, 5 showed up and 2 didn't. Aidan O'Riordan, who has been appointed an MEP but who hasn't taken up his seat yet, so he was entitled to vote, and the other one was Duncan Smith. And then I believe the only other person who didn't turn up was Joan Collins, who's a TD with Independents for Change. So all in all, even if we had the TDs, so there was obviously 4 TDs from Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil who could have voted with the party, and then there were 5 other TDs who potentially could have voted no. So obviously if we add those 5 number TDs to the 72 who did vote no, we would still only have been at 77 and the government were at 79. So unless some people within the government either voted against the government or didn't turn up, it still wouldn't have gone our way. So it was the government who propelled this through at the end of the day.
But what I find, and I know it's how our system operates. I don't call it democracy operating properly, but nevertheless, it is how it's done at the moment. But I find it quite extraordinary that all 18 independent TDs, clearly listening to the grassroots, voted no, along with some other smaller parties. I get that, but to me that's very, very significant, and that all of the Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil and Green TDs went along with the whip, which means that they were clearly not listening or decided not to act in the interests of their own constituents, because there was an overwhelming feeling out there that we were all picking up, including the independents, so it was real, to say, no, we don't want to opt into this because we have voted about this previously in Lisbon, and we retained the right, and people were aware that the Danes weren't doing so either. So I just found it a very, very sad night to see all this play out. I think it's going to have ramifications in the up-and-coming general election. What do you think?
I hope it has ramifications. I think an awful lot of people say that the local election isn't a reflection on how people will vote in the general election, and I certainly hope that is the case. I hope that the electorate look at what the government did here and they realise that the people that they are electing in their local constituencies to represent them are not representing them. I really hope they recognise that, and when the general election comes up, and a lot of us are hearing that it's going to be in October of this year, that they actually vote to make sure they vote these people out and vote in people who do have the interests of the Irish people at the forefront.